I want to talk about Miles Bridges. So there's been talk this week about whether the Sixers should be interested in Miles Bridges if we end up striking out on any of the big fish. That's pretty split on that. Sixers Nation is kind of, yeah, it's one or the other. People just aren't not 100% sold on the move. But my question is, would you guys be in favor of taking a chance on Bridges and Miles Bridges, not Mikal Bridges? Obviously, we're all in on Mikal Bridges. But how would he fit with a Maxey and Embiid if we were going to start off with those three guys?
Me being a fellow Spartan, I would always take a fellow Spartan. But I mean, I think that if Miles is coming, you have to kind of see who he would come with. I think if you're getting Miles, you have to bring in another piece with him to complement you taking that next step. I think he's the guy that can help. He can shoot a three. He can athletic, played 3 and 4. So he fits from that perspective. I just think that with him, you would need more in order to take a step forward. And maybe that's a guard, another guard. But I do feel, or maybe it's 2 other guys. I think that Miles, I would take him, but I would take him. It would have to be a piece of, a few, a couple or a few guys in order to, improve our team.
Now, I have to ask the dreaded question because most of the should we sign, should we not sign controversy with him is off the court stuff, unfortunately. Does that hinder your interest at all? And would that also play a factor into what kind of contract he'd get as far as money and years?
I mean, I think it always goes into what kind of contract you can get, because the market is going to determine that. We have to decide, how long do you hold stuff, up to people? Like, what is the threshold for you saying he's this type of guy, or we shouldn't sign him because of what happened? Will it be different 2 years from now, or when is the threshold to be like we're gonna move on from it? So, I mean, if you feel the way you feel now, and you're not going to change, then I think he's going to be a guy that people are going to always feel the way they feel. Yeah. So I believe that in the guy in his situation, when you're always going to have sort of that cloud over you, I'm a firm believer that the Northeastern cities and teams are the best place for you, because the fans are passionate fans. Yes, they'll get on you, but they also appreciate when they see that you put in work. Yeah. So if you come there and you play hard, like you can eliminate, you can change the narrative a little bit. Like we bring up Spree. Going to New York was the best thing for his career. Going to New York City, because it allowed him to write things. And I think sometimes certain cities are made for that kind of turnaround for you. So I see Philly as that type of town where the narrative in Philly, when you go in Philly and you come to the Sixers, the narrative isn't going to be what you did. It's going to be, what are you doing now? Are you balling or not? Are you playing hard or not? Are you competing or not? And that's what it's going to be about. So I still see that it can work from that perspective. But yeah, of course, it also always plays into negotiations. But at the end of the day, the negotiations also comes down to what other market is offering him, and are we willing to beat it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of controversy on this, and people are either just throwing them off their board and saying, nope, or they're willing. Yeah. So there's no middle, right? There's no let's see. There's no let's see what the contract is for most people. It's either absolutely not or yeah. I'm in the range. Yeah. I just think there's risk with. Look, if he's allowed to play, he's allowed to play, right? So It's like how are people worried about the perception of signing him because he's allowed and he's not out of the league. You're not signing someone who's banned.
That's the point I'm trying to say. Like his penalty's been served.
Yeah, he's here. Like so, it's like
you may not like it, but his penalty's been served.
Yeah, so you're worried about the perception, or you're worried about the risk of him maybe doing something again. And to my counter to that is, we're talking about signing 35 and 37-year-olds and 38-year-olds to contracts. You want to talk about risk? So, like, whether it's injury risk or he might mess up off the court risk and then not play for a long time, we're in the risky business right now, sounds like, between Butler's, the Georges, LeBron's age, Lowry's age even. So, like, we're making risks right now, whether it's because of a guy's injury past or it's because of his checkered past. So I'm not going to let that stand in the way. Now, will that change the contract for him? Do you have clauses in there to say that if he gets in trouble? I'm all for that. I'm cool with that. That's fine. So you take measures to make sure that you don't get screwed if he gets in trouble again. I don't know him personally. I'm not going to pretend to know him personally. I don't know if he will again. I know that after his suspension incident, he had like a weird incident with like kicking a car, kicking like a tire, and like no charges were filed, but people were like, well, you know, if your career is almost on the line and you do something like that, then like, you know, what does that say? Like, is he right yet? So I don't know. He didn't get charged. So there's no league action on it. So he's still allowed to play basketball, and he's allowed to play basketball for any team. As far as on the court, I mean, he checks a lot of boxes. Is he a knockdown 3-point shooter? No, but the last 3 years he's shot he's like 35, almost 36%. Definitely good enough on 6 shots a game. That's pretty good. Last 2 seasons, he's averaging like 21 and 7. Again, I would gladly take that. Is it on a not so great team? Sure. But like we took Oubre from a not so great team and he gelled pretty well with this team, right? I think this is kind of like
I'll give you this scenario. So if he comes to us, and what else do you think he would need if he essentially played the way PJ Washington has played for the Mavericks this playoffs?
What else do you think we would need as a team?
Yes, like what else? Like if that's what Miles Bridges brought to the table, because I think they're very similar. PJ's a little taller, but they're very similar.
Yeah. Well, he's not shooting 18 shots a game with us. That's not happening. So we can forget that right now.
No, I'm just saying. Like, what I'm saying is in the playoffs he could. You can get like that in the playoffs. But what is it that what are you thinking?
Well, the beauty of Bridges
what else do you think that? I'm just saying, like, if that's his role and it's going to be with us, that's how you have to view him with Maxey and Joel. Like, what else is he really going to really do? He's not an ISO guy. He's not a Brandon Ingram or a Paul George. He's not that type of free agent. So that's sort of how his role is going to look for us. So what else do we need in addition to that? That may ease the kind of the thought process of bringing him in.
Oh, and I think the beauty of signing him is that I don't think his contract's going to be bloated, nowhere near the other guys we're talking about. I think he'll be, by a lot of the projections I've seen, mid-20s per year. And if you get him for mid-20s, if you get him at like 25 a year, let's say a 2-year deal, 2-year $50 million, 3-year $75 or something. You're talking about still having $40 million to spend. You can still go out and trade for not the top tier, but like the next tier down, which I think we're about to get to anyway. So it's a good segue. You can maybe get 2 of those guys. So you'd have the kind of roster that Joel's been saying he wants, like a Denver Nuggets type team. If you start with the Bridges, who can kind of be your kind of Aaron Gordon-ish, right?
Yes. Yes.
I think that's a good comp, pretty good comp for him. He's only 25, so it's not like he's not done progressing. He's missed a whole year and he's still 25. I think he can still progress to be even better defender with a Nick Nurse that likes to play defense. I think you go out and you can still look for you can sign KCP to be your KCP, and you can still find your MPJ to be your 4, and he could be your 3. So you can really, if you want to go hey, we struck out on Butler, we struck out on George, we struck out on the big fish, let's build our balanced roster. Bridges would be a good guy to do that with because he will allow you to still spend some pretty good money on your surrounding pieces and have a good bench after that. So that's what I would do. You said, what would you do around him if you did go Bridges? I would just go that route. I'm not going to say just say a type. Say like sign KCP to be your 2, and you sign like a Kuzma to be your 4. Just an example. That's a very, very Denverish team. Maxey, Kuzma, KCP.
And that's a team that can win the championship.
Bridges, Kuzma, and Embiid. Balanced.
Yeah.
Other guys who can go off for like 25, 30 points in a game if your guys aren't available or they're not hitting it that night. And a bench. And you'll still have a bench. So it'd be better than like Denver.
That's a team that can win the championship.
Yeah. Denver's kept that team together, and they don't have a bench anymore. That's part of their problem because they've spent so much money keeping those guys together at this point. They're going to have to keep doing it too. So yeah, I'm in favor of that. I would love that.
Now I know, obviously, in this day and age, positionless basketball, but is he more of a 3 or 4 to you, Eric? Or does it depend on who the other guys we sign, and that would make up where he'd be?
I would say more 4-3 instead of 3-4.
Okay.
So you'd probably want to get like a guy who can kind of be interchangeable with him at 3-4, depending on who you're playing, right? Yeah.
More offensive minded. Yeah. Kuzma would be that's a perfect example, yes.
Kuzma, or another guy I had on this list of guys, a Jeremy Grant, right? Is that another guy you'd say could probably play with the Bridges? Because Bridges is a good rebounder. Jeremy Grant's not a great rebounder, so you have that balance there, right? So those are the kind of guys. Yeah. And Avia from the Wizards, another guy who could do that too. Yeah. Cam Johnson, another guy. I would say that kind of thing. Dorian Finney-Smith, another guy who can kind of fit that.
Yeah. Cam Johnson fits a little more.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get what you're saying.
And all those guys you just mentioned are trade pieces, right?
Those are all my trade list is all those. Yeah. So Kuzma, Jeremy Grant. If you want to go guard, I'd say like Murray, Bogdanovich would be like the 2-3. Obviously, I've said a million times Caruso, Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, Kispert, who could play 3. His contract's very favorable. I think he's making 5 and 6 the next couple of years. I would love that. Just like winning type players, I think that, they're not winning on their teams, but it's not their fault. But I think, you need those. We need more of those guys on our roster, right? Those are all free agency would be more of I listed the Bridges, KCP, Klay Thompson, who if you signed a Bridges type guy, you don't get KCP, Klay Thompson would be a guy to put on that kind of team, right? And then Bruce Brown, Beasley, Gary Trent, Gary Harris, Caleb Martin. Those are all the guys I listed for signing players.